So in this video I want to give you an overview of what files and folders are. Now you might have been using a computer for a while and you're still a bit confused when you want to save a file. Where do you put it? How do you find it again? And so on. Now I'm doing this on Windows obviously, but on other operating systems like Mac and Linux the ideas are exactly the same, but sometimes just the words are a bit different. Now in front of me I've got Windows Explorer open, and the way you do that is you can either press the Windows key and E on your keyboard, or you can go to this yellow icon on your taskbar and click that, or if you go Start and look for Explorer, which you can just type, then you'll see File Explorer as one of the apps to open. Now when you open it up you'll probably see devices and drives here. If not, just look on the left where it says this PC and click on that. Now the main drive on your Windows computer is called C, and there's a reason for that. In the old days you had floppy drives that were labeled A and B, and your main drive where all your data was installed is called C, and usually if you had a CD-ROM or DVD installed that would be D, but in this case I've got another hard drive here and that's where my data is stored. And then if I double click for example on C here, I see a whole bunch of folders. These are folders, these yellow ones with these little icons. So a folder is like a container. A folder can contain other folders, and those folders in turn can contain other folders. And folders can also contain files. They don't have to, they can be empty, but they can contain one or more files. Now a file, just so you know, is an individual document. So a photo could be a file, or a Word document, or a movie, or a spreadsheet, or a music file, and each of those are individual files. Now if you know what folders and files are in real life, this may seem a bit confusing, because files are things that can contain documents, but then so are folders. So just remember that folders are things where you can put files into, and folders can also contain other folders, and those in turn can contain files, etc. Now back to Explorer. So C, at which I'm looking now, is in fact a folder. It's a root folder, just like D would be as well. So in here I'm just looking at a bunch of folders. If I now double click on one and I go in there and in here and in there and in there, I've just gone through a bunch of folders and now I see a few files inside of this one. And you might have noticed that as I went through these, that all of these updated at the top, and this is called a path. Now the path is the route I took to get to my document. I started here at C, which is a root folder, then went to users, Horace, documents, stuff, and finally to the letter.doc inside of there. And this at the bottom is called the path. It shows me the whole way I went to get to that point. So starting with C to users, users to Horace, Horace to documents, documents to stuff, and then finally to the letter.doc inside of that. Now if I'd gone a different route or route, then my path would obviously look different. Now if I go back to that navigation path I had earlier, if it doesn't look the way that it looks here, the other thing could be that under the view menu you also have various options for displaying large or small icons or tiles, etc., etc. And I've just got mine set to details. Then the next thing I want to briefly mention is file extensions. On Windows, Windows knows what type of file a file is by the file name extension. Now usually a file name has got, well, there's a name followed by a dot and then usually 3 letters, sometimes 4, and this tells it, for example, a .txt is a text file, .docx is a Word document, MKV is a type of video, but these file name extensions are by default normally hidden, and here you can see under the view menu I've got them turned on, and if I turn them off this is what you see, and normally this is what you see by default in Windows. I like to keep the file name extensions on though. The other thing I quickly want to show you, under the navigation pane menu there's an option here that says expand to open folder. Now if I click that on, then you're going to see that same path that I showed you earlier. So I'm under C, which is the root for the folder I'm in, and then there you've got users, Horace, documents and stuff. And that might be helpful if you switch to another folder. You can see it on the left pane, it'll update. And it shows you where you are, which often by default you won't know in Explorer. Now, I've spent a lot of time explaining to you how files and folders are organized on Windows, and I think this is something that Microsoft has done, obviously to try and make life easier for users, but I don't think that's always the case. Is if you click, for example, on this PC, you just see at the top here this PC, there's no proper path, and this is kind of not a real folder, it's a virtual folder that it's displaying in Explorer. Also, if you go to any of these like documents or downloads or whatever the case may be, you'll see that it doesn't show the whole path. Now this is a real folder, but to actually get to this you'd have to go, for example in this case, see users, Mackie, documents, and then you can see the whole path to there. But by doing it this way, I think Microsoft's intention was to make it easier for users, but they've hidden a lot of the detail, and that's not necessarily helpful if you're trying to understand computers and how files and folders work. Now, this was just a short video to try and give you an idea of what files and folders are. I'd like to encourage you to go and play around a bit yourself, see what actions you can do, creating files, deleting files, moving them around. If you make a mistake, there's an undo option, which also has a shortcut, Control Z or Z, depending on where you live. And play around and let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want explained or which was unclear. Thanks, bye bye.